Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well on this Saturday afternoon. For some of you guys, it might be Saturday evening. Today, we'll be learning about an app by Huzaifa Ahmed, who will be teaching us not only app development using React Native, but how to create an Athan app. So without all further ado, I'm going to pass this on to Brother Huzaifa.
All right, assalamu alaikum, guys. Let me share my screen real quick. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, assalamu alaikum, guys. So we're going to be going over React Native today, and let's get to it. So just a few points about me. I'm currently a student at and I currently intern at this company startup called Wing, which is a assistant like Alexa and Siri. And I've previously won a lot of hackathons too, including this global hackathon for which I won $10,000. So that's just a few points about me real quick. So just some assumptions I'm making over here. So I'm assuming that everyone's new to mobile development and have some familiarity with HTML and JavaScript. And yeah. So I'll start out by asking who here has built a mobile application before, like using Swift, Java, or any other language? Just put it in the chat real quick. Yeah, so if you have, you probably know that's super, annoying. Swift and Xcode takes a lot of time to compile. And it's like one of the excuses every programmer has that, oh, it's compiling, I'll get back to work later. And it takes a lot of time, And so what is React Native? Well, React Native is a open source platform where you can code once and it would compile into both iOS and Android. So one quote I found online is learn more once and write everywhere. So it's really good in terms of that you don't have to code it twice, and especially beneficial for startups. So it's fast and simple and easy, as I mentioned before. And it was developed by Facebook and is also maintained by Facebook, and that's how you know it's legit. It runs on iOS and Android, and also web, by the way. So that's really beneficial. And it's built on top of this framework called React, which I'll get into later. And saves a lot of money and time for startups, so which is good for them. So this is a few brand apps that you probably know of that currently use React Native. So Uber, Instagram, Skype, Airbnb. There are a lot more, but these are the most popular ones, and it has a lot of features. Yeah, so I'll talk about. So before we get into React, it's important to cover the concept of React, which is basically the building base of React Native. So React is also a JavaScript framework like React Native, and it's used for creating web applications. So and it uses this concept known as components, which HTML also uses, if you're familiar with that. And it's rendered through React, which is a compiler. React Native uses React Native's own compiler, where React uses React DOM. So what are React components? Well, React is a component-based library, and these components are eventually translated into HTML elements in React. So if you're familiar with HTML, H1 is for headings. So like hello Oma hacks and H1 would be eventually translated into this box here, like hello Oma hacks, right? And then div is a container for any other component. So div can contain H1, div can contain H2, and these are basically components and that allow you to make proper applications. And A is for links. So hyperlinks, if you want to attach or link to something, you use A. And syntax is that you put the tag name in between the greater and less than sign, and you end the component by adding a backslash. And that's how you add components in React. React Native has a similar layout. So it also uses components, and these components eventually get translated into the native UI. So some examples that you may be familiar with are view, text, image, text input, and scroll view, and style sheet. And these are pretty self-explanatory. So let's say view. View is basically a container for all the other components. So as an example, this whole box is a view, right? And then text is the text component. So basically everything here. So this is a text component. This is also a text component. An image is, as it might represent, is an image. So this is an image here. And text input allows you to input text. So you can have an interaction with your user. And then scroll view allows you to make it scrollable. And style sheet allows you to give it style. So it's not just boring plain text. And so it looks so that it actually looks good. And some UI features include button, picker, slider, switch. So in button, you can click and interact with the application. Picker allows you to drag and drop certain features. And sliders allows you to like select a value on a slider. And then switch allows you to toggle and toggle off certain features. I will get into like more detail, but these are like the major ones that we would be using in this workshop. So let's actually get started and actually start coding this, because that's the best way of actually learning how to make an application. So I've set up this Snap environment for you guys so that it's easier, so that you don't have to go through the painful process of downloading React Native on your. Let me put this in the chat so that you guys can here. Yeah, so over here, so as we discussed, React Native is built on a React. So we started by importing React. But by the way, did everyone get to go on there? I'll give it a second. Yeah, okay, awesome. So you can actually run this on web or Android or iOS. Usually, so you can actually play on your phone, and you can actually download it on your phone too. So I encourage you guys to play around with this. But I'll get into explaining what this code means and represents. So the second line of code, we're importing React Native and components from React Native. So we import text view, text input, safe area view, and button. And we basically covered all of these except safe area and button, safe area view. But I'll explain safe area view later on. So over here, text has hello my hacker here, and that's translated into this UI. I can change this and say hello hackers, and that would be changed here. And I encourage you guys to like play around with this. Is your playground. Change stuff here. Add maybe a I don't know, just maybe a view, and within the view, you can have other text. You have to import view here first, or else it'll give you an error. But have other text, maybe like hi, and oops. Yeah, just play around with it. The more you play around with it, the better you get at it. Yeah, it's being annoying, but oh, I already have it. Yeah, but yeah, there you go. So that's how you basically have. This is basically the skeleton of the code. It's not super, good looking right now, but we will get into the styling later. Yeah, so let's get to the styling part. So this right now is super plain, just text. How do we go about styling it and make it look better so that your users like it? So let's get into that. So there are two things you can do to add styling to your to your code. So you can actually add an attribute in a line, and the way you do that is define an attribute style and font, and then between that double brackets, you write your style. So this is basically like CSS. So let's try doing that right now. So let's say I want to make this blue and font size equal blue. Um, then font size equal 32. And so there you go. That's how you add style to a component. Let's say I want to make this font size 12 and the color would be purple. That's how I can do that. And you can play around with it, add more stuff, you know. And yeah, that's how you add style inline. But obviously, as you probably noticed, that it gets really, really big, like the line gets really big and annoying. So how do you make it more organized rather than having to define this code every single time in the line? So in order to like make it super organized, we can use this other component known as style sheets. And basically, style sheet, you write the styles in this component called style sheet, and then you can access this anywhere. So let's say I want to have two titles with the same format. How do I do that? Well, I just need to put this line of code there instead of actually having to, rewrite everything. So we can use style sheet or styles. It depends on like what type of styling you're doing or what your preference is. But I usually actually go ahead and write styles in the style sheet because it's just a lot easier to work with. Um, so now that we have some basic familiarity with styles and components, let's actually go ahead and make the prayer application, which all of you are probably here for. So I set this environment up for you, this another environment for you guys, so that you don't have APIs and all the other data management stuff, because that's kind of out of the scope for this workshop. So I'll give you guys, let me send this to you. So go ahead and load this environment here. I'll give you a second, and let me know when you guys have this loaded up. You guys have it loaded up? Right, awesome. So right now, it's being super on. Let me put this in Safari. Yeah, so right now we have this code, and what it does is that it looks, so if you go to the functions thing, it goes to this API and returns the timings for the prayer time for the day, the prayer times for the day. Now, if you want to actually display it, because right now it just prints it. So if I pull up my console log, it just prints the timings for the day. So what if I want to actually display this code? So we'll start off by actually writing the code for the app. We're gonna be making this. So we'll start off by writing the code, the skeleton of the code of the container. So we'll define a view, which is basically the container of the text, and then we'll have a text component. This first text is going to be for fudger timings. So we'll be like fudger, and then we'll copy paste this below this. So it's annoying. Something like Oh, my bad. Yeah, so as you can see, we have this here, and this is basically the timings, and we would change this so that's dynamic and actually has the timings for the day. So let me change this with Doher and Asr, and then Maghrib, and then Isha. So we currently have the basic skeleton of per se of the code. Now we want to add styling so it looks kind of better because right now it's super ugly. So we'll go ahead and actually add styling for this. So let's put a styling for the pair times container. And as I mentioned, you have to define it over here in the style sheets, right? So input color, and then let's add white. And then the font size. So when it's let that load, and you can see if it's white. It should be white. Oh wait, never mind. It's supposed to be background color. And that's changed the background color to white. And now we want to add padding to this. Padding basically is the space, so that it's not, contained to the edges. And then we want to add border radius, and the border radius would be 10. You can obviously change this to anything based on what you like and what you think would look good. Yeah. So usually this is usually like what based on the design you want to look like. You can change this to 12 or 30 to 30. Basically what you want to look. And so that's good for the UI part of things. Now, how do we go about actually making this dynamic and actually access the prayer times? So if you look at the set times function here, this gets the prayer time from the date, prayer times for the date and location. We're actually I set this environment for you guys so that you don't have to worry about it. But this gets the location of the user. So once you have the location of the user and the date, we can get the prayer times, and this prayer time is should load it here. Well, this prayer time is a JSON file, and and then yeah. So if I want to access this prayer time, the timings, not loading for some reason. That's super weird. Oh, I think I'm supposed to be in Android. Sorry, give me a second. Allow. It's being super weird. Oh, there you go. So as you can see here, once I click the button for load prayer times, it calls this function called set timings with the current date. New date gets the current date, and that returns the timings for the day. So in order for me to access this fudger timing and output it here, I would have to access this through this variable called prayer times, right? So I can do that by defining prayer times here, and then accessing timings, because this is what I want, right? So I can say timings, and then I can say fudger because that's the time for fudger. and then that would be and then we would have the fudger timings here. But since pair times only gets defined once we call this function, we have to do some debugging, just so that it doesn't give me an error. So I have to add this line of code, which basically checks if the pair time is null, just then don't display it. But once it gets the pair times, don't only then display it. And that's how I get the pair times for fudger, which is for 4 a.m. And then I do the same for the following doher and asr. And that basically does it. Adds doher to it, and then asr, and maghrib, and isha. Oops. And that should output all the pair times for today. And that's how you make a pair time application. So I have a challenge for you guys to actually go ahead and make this pair application look a lot better from the few minutes we have had today to learn about it. This is what I made like with better UI. I don't want to make so I challenge you guys to actually try to make something like this, where it's more complicated. There's better UI. You can actually look for other days in the week. But yeah, that's it for me. If you guys have any questions, leave in the chat box. Oh, my bad. Yes, you can modify the apps in Xcode, but the process is really complicated, and it's often better not to do so. What components did I use it to make it nicer? I didn't actually use any of their components. It was mostly like text and buttons and all that stuff. It's a lot of it's a lot, like you have to. I would say like use Figma to design your application before you actually make the application. So this is the design I had made before I went on and creating the application. And Figma allows you actually get the code, so you can actually just copy paste this design for in the styles area, which is really nice. Yeah, what are some good resources for learning more about UI design in React Native? So I would say design code is really good. That's where I learned React Native. It's a really good website. There, just use YouTube. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube to learn UI design on React Native. I use the Islamic Finder API to get the data. Let me actually pull it up here. No, not here. It's in Omaha's functions. Yeah. Oh, actually, it's the Athan API. These guys. Oh, W API. You can look at the documentations here for this API. Yeah. Are there any more questions? Mhm. What's an API? API is basically it's basically this web URL where you can get data from. So it allows you to connect to a backend database. So you don't want to have all your data located on the user side. You want to have another computer that stores all the data. So API allows you to get all that data from the other computer. So there's not a lot of competing going on the user side. Does that did that make sense? Sounds good. Any other questions? Nope. We have some people on Facebook that might have some questions. All right. Flutter is pretty good. It's I like React Native better because it's just a lot more maintained and but Flutter does the job too. Um, but I just I prefer React Native because it's similar to React and it's just easy to switch back and forth when I'm developing applications. I don't have to like worry about the syntax. Another good language is Ionic. I've seen a lot of startups use it. The only thing is, the good thing about Ionic is that it actually makes the web application for you too. So it's pretty nice. Ionic's pretty nice too. Yeah. PWA. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so that's exactly what happens. So React Native converts these, let's say, text field to the UI text field, and that's the good thing about React Native compared to like Ionic. Ionic just uses the web view and sort of mimics that and puts that onto like a mobile application, whereas React Native converts that into the text field. Um, Have I used Python for API work? Yes, I have. Flask is the way to go, and with Python and APIs. Um, yeah, so Python's really good for API stuff. Can I explain the components aspect of React Native a bit more? How are they used to? So components. Um, yeah, I can. So components are basically like the building blocks, I should say, or is everything a component? Pretty much. So components are basically like the skeleton. I like to call them a skeleton of the application, and then CSS is like the or the styles are like the that would makes it prettier, and then JavaScript, the functions are what the muscles of the applications actually make it do stuff. So like, for example, the functions get dates. Um, that does stuff that gets all the dates. So it's basically the muscles of the application. That makes sense. What's the difference between React and React Native? So React only works for the web apps. So React doesn't compile into React Native. React Native, on the other hand, compiles into both web apps and a mobile application. So if you're trying to like rapid prototype and just launch an MVP, I feel like most of the times it's good to use React Native. But if you're just trying to like launch a website, say on, I would suggest using React in that scenario. Does that answer your question? Okay, sounds good. Well, Electron's another, I believe Electron's another a framework, just like React. There are a lot of frameworks for um, making mobile applications with JavaScript. But React, personally, I like React better, but it really depends on what you're trying to make and how fast you're trying to make it. Like Xcode works too, React Native works too, Electron works too. It honestly depends on what you prefer and what you're trying to make. Any other question? Am I? Yes, I'm actually a AI engineer. I don't do like full stack work, but this is like a part-time thing I tried to do. What do I use for the backend? I use Flask mostly, but I have tried to use Java too. But Python's a lot easier to deploy models and with AI stuff too. Um, any other question? Um, what's the job security like an app developer? From what I've seen, it's pretty secure. Um, if you're a freelancer, it honestly don't know. I'm not an app developer, so I don't know. Sorry. What's the main difference of trades of using React Native versus Swift for iOS native development? So iOS React Native again allows you to do both. So Swift is good for like core ML. iOS has their own packages like core ML, for instance. It allows you to like develop AI models on your phone, which is pretty neat. Native doesn't support such features, and so if you're trying to get like those specific features that are just specific to like iOS, um, um, you should use Xcode. But again, yeah, performance is a reason too. React Native sometimes can get slow because again this is open source and everything's coded by like other people, so it can get like slow at times, React Native, but it's usually really fast. That's what I would say. Yeah. Any other questions? Um, all right. Yeah. Yeah, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll share my LinkedIn account on the chat here. Yeah. Thank you all for joining this session. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that's it from me. Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, Jazakallah khairan, Zaifa. Really do appreciate teaching us how to create an Athan app. Inshallah khair, later today we'll be having, as part of Hacks, we'll be having a keynote given by the founders of Kadama. And then later tonight we'll be having a community night for all of our hackers. We'll be raffling off a Raspberry Pi. We'll be having a lot of things going on during our community night, and we'll be discussing more stuff in regards to submissions. As you guys know, our submission deadline was moved till tomorrow night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. So I hope to see you guys later tonight. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.